Hey everyone, how's it going? It's That Nerd Ryan here, and today we're going to talk about Call of Duty World War II. Honestly, let's get right into it because I'm really excited to talk about it. Because this, by far, is the greatest campaign I've played in Call of Duty for a very long time. Mind you, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, those have great stories. Don't get me wrong. But this one was a very heartfelt and enjoyable and amazing story. I do want to disclaim here that multiplayer will not be covered in this. However, zombies will. I did only play Final Reich, but that I feel like really sums up World War II zombies. But first, let's get into the story. So, basically, you play as Daniels, a private in the U.S. Army, from D-Day to the Battle of the Rhine. So, it's a very good story, is all I have to say. You start out by storming the beaches of Normandy with your squad. You end up really bonding with one of your squad mates, Zussman, to the point of being brothers. Obviously, your whole squad is a band of brothers. The team is ran by Turner, who is all for his men and cares about his men. And then you have Pearson, who cares more about the mission. Through all of this, you also hear about something that happened in Kesserine that, basically Pearson got all of his men killed. And we'll talk about what actually happened later in the story. But you go through D-Day, then you go and push through France, help with the French resistance, taking over their main building. That's the only mission where you don't play as Daniels for half the mission. Is you play as a spy for France, or the French resistance. And before that, I did skip over, there is a mission before that where you are to take down a German train. Excuse me. A German train, and it collapses on itself, and it's good 30 seconds of just insanity. And then you team up with the French, and you go over and take back France. Then you storm into Germany, and then into Belgium for the Battle of the Bulge, and then you take over the Rhine. After the Battle of the Bulge, there's a mission where Zussman is captured. One of Zussman's things, which we'll talk about more in characters, is he is Jewish, and he does get captured by the Germans. You do try to go and save him, but you do not succeed. When that happens, you end up getting injured, and you're technically honorably discharged from the army. But you decide to go back and save Zussman. Also, during this, it turns out your wife is pregnant. I'm going to get more into this during characters, but your wife is pregnant. You are writing to your brother Paul, and at that point, you have a dream that looks like it almost actually happened, that you went with Paul, or you went back home, got driven home by Paul to see your wife and your baby and be a hometown hero. But the war's not finished. Zussman has to be saved. So you go out and you try to save him. At that point, it's realized in the past, your brother Paul was attacked by a wolf, and you were too afraid to shoot the wolf to save him. Through the thing, it was kind of shown that he was fine and heading back home. But at this point, you find out that Paul died at that spot. He walked a few steps, said, "Let's go home," and succumbed to his injuries. So you do get a chance of redeeming yourself by saving Zussman from a German after looking at the camps. So you get to redeem yourself with that. and go home, meet your wife, meet your baby, and the war's over. So it was a great story. I do want to mention, I don't know if this was like intentional, but the level where you topple the train, I think it's like a level or two after you get the whole wolf scenario. You hear wolves in the background of the first episode, and they're nowhere to be seen. And I mean, this was just a really well-written story, and not only was it a well-written story, but it had very well-written characters. And mostly everybody, I want to say, like, Aurelio was kind of left out, and Aurelio and Styles were kind of like minor main characters, where they kind of like they are established, but not as much as Zussman, Daniels, Turner, and Pearson. And we'll get to Turner and Pearson in this character portion, because I did leave out a big major part of the story, but I wanted to save it here to talk about characters. So Daniels, like I said, you are playing as him. He is the main character of the story. His whole thing was that when he was a kid, his brother was killed by a wolf, and he's been haunted by nightmares and trying to redeem himself ever since then. Also, you do get like the classic army tropes of, oh, my wife's pregnant, back home, oh, I gotta get back home, I gotta protect my brothers, that sort of stuff. But you really feel it with Daniels. Like, I remember you wanting to survive and pull through this, and making sure that every character makes it through. Unfortunately, that does not happen, but we'll get to that in a minute. Zussman was also a good character. He was a sort of comic relief and very well written as like a best friend. He's the one that you could console to, one that you could talk to, everything like that. He was the real close one. Before we get to the two leaders of the group, Styles was kind of just thrown as the smart college guy. I mean, his nickname was College, and Aurelio was the big-time New Yorker sort of guy. But they were a part of your team. They were your friends. You'd hear banter between everybody. Usually it was between Styles and Aurelio. But then you get to Turner and Pearson. So Turner was technically your actual leading officer. He always cared about his men's safety over what was going on. He would also make sure that, like, you taking care of people in general. I mean, there's one mission in Germany where you rescue a little girl from the Germans. I'm really trying hard not to say the other word. But, and you put them in the truck. The mission was to take over the hotel and stay there, use it as a command post. But Turner wants to save all these refugees. That is a point of contention between him and Pearson. And Pearson sends him off. And Turner is upset about that. And then what does happen pretty soon after is Turner sacrifices himself to save the squad and dies, leaving Pearson fully in charge. And we will get to that now. So Pearson always cares about the mission. He's played by Josh Duhamel in this. He is very much so a jerk. He comes off as a jerk. After Turner dies, he becomes a drunk jerk. 9 times out of 10, he is not sober afterwards. But he is always about the mission. I mean, there's a point in the first mission where Zussman gets stabbed, and he tries to join, like, before 8 weeks. And, like, to test him, Pearson's, like, hitting him on the wound like that. And be like, okay, are you ready for this? Are you sure? Like that. And stuff like that. And then just being, like, just kind of an all-around jerk. And everybody mentions his mission to Kesserine, which caused a lot of men to die. So people are assuming that that was because he was pushing the mission. Once you get your letter home, you mention it to the general, and he says, no, what happened was there was a few men left behind, and Pearson didn't want to leave them behind and ended up getting more people killed trying to save them than the people that needed to be saved, and it changed him. So you kind of learn that Pearson's really just a broken man. And you end up kind of bonding with him too after that point when you decide to go back and sacrifice going home to save Zussman. I also want to say I do like the fact too that there is, I mean, obviously there is a main villain of this, but you're not part of the team that takes care of that main villain. There's like little minor German antagonists that we see through this, but there's no one big bad that like, okay, this person's ruined my life, I have to go after him. Like Rook in Ghosts, or Jon Snow, or Kevin Spacey, or Makarov, Menendez, Dragovich. It is good old, we're the USA, we're coming in to save the day during World War II. It felt more like an actual war movie, a war game, which was really good. And I'm not bashing those other games, I'm just saying it was a nice change of pace. Game mechanics. There's a lot of stealth in this, surprisingly, and it's incorporated really well. It is better than the stealth missions in the previous games because you actually are doing sneaking around, and if it goes south, you don't get in trouble, it just becomes harder. And I thought that was really cool. Another cool game mechanic that I loved on this was that each squad member gave you something. So there would be an option once the gauge was full that somebody can give you an option or give you something to help. So which each of them actually made sense with the character too. So like Zussman gives you first aid, which we'll talk about health in a second, because I forgot that did kind of change from modern COD. But yeah, he'll give you a health pack. He's your best friend, he wants to keep you alive. Turner gives you extra ammo, cares about his men, wants to make sure that they're fully ready to defend themselves. Pearson points out the enemy, cares about the mission, wants to make sure the mission's done. Styles gives you mortar strikes. You have to kind of make sure you're doing your math right. He's a college guy. I'm sorry, I mixed that up. He gives you grenades and stuff. College, I don't really know how that compares. I feel like that was the last thought one. Aurelio gives you mortar strikes. Big New Yorker, big tough guy. Bring in the big guns. Also on this, you do not have regenerative health. You have health packs that you have to pick up and conserve. You can only pick up 4 at a time. But yeah, I found that as a really cool thing. And of course you get the missions of driving a tank, flying a plane. All of those were great. The plane one was amazing. I thought that was a great mission. So I'm going to give the story a 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about zombies. 10 out of 10. So I love Treyarch Zombies. I think Treyarch Zombies is great. I didn't get to do Advanced Warfare yet. Infinite Warfare Zombies was pretty fun in like a goofy aspect. With Infinite Warfare, you got goofy zombies. With Treyarch, you got the more traditional action, I want to say, zombies. Stuff like that, where you got like so much lore and everything. This is straight up horror. This is what the original zombies must have felt from World at War, but done better in a sense. Don't get me wrong, I still think Treyarch Zombies is the best, but this one, I don't want to say I remember ever having an anxiety attack playing Treyarch Zombies. This one gives you anxiety, terrible dread, terrible feelings, constantly. There's actually jump scares in this. There's overwhelming situations where you don't think you're going to make it out, but you actually end up making it out. And just the design of the zombies are so freaky. There's also like bosses that are just thrown in there. Every 5 rounds you get these one zombies. I forgot what they're called. I don't know what they're actually called, I should say. But I've been calling them flies because there's fly sounds around them and they rush at you. You also get like a Brutus each round after a certain point. You get nuke zombies that carry around a giant bomb. And you get flamethrower zombies as well. Which, you get them rushing at you all at once. It's very scary. You do get the power-ups that you get in Treyarch Zombies. And I don't really know what to say about the characters because I only played twice. And they were okay. I mean, they're not the Treyarch characters. But this felt like an actual horror experience. And I loved it. So I'm going to give this game altogether a 10 out of 10. I did hear horror stories about multiplayer, but I've also heard positive. Obviously, I'm not including that because I think the multiplayer is dead for it, so I'm not going to go and do that. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and follow me on all my social media down below. It's That Nerd Ryan.